Greetings and Beloved, Sun Card 19, and welcome to another tarot reading. This time we're going to focus on love relationships, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to shuffle the deck, and as I shuffle, just give you an opportunity to be in the mind state, just relax and ready, okay? And I'm going to split the deck into 4 piles, and I just want you to focus on the pile that's best for you. Okay, we're gonna add Larimar, Pink Tourmaline, Prenite, and Spirit Quartz. Okay, so I'm gonna give you an opportunity to just relax and just think about which one you think is the best for you. Which one is calling you? Which one has captured your attention? All right, first pile. All right, here we go. Let's see what we have here. Focusing on love and a love relationship. All right, so the first card we have here is the Emperor. This is a state of being in charge, someone who is very secure, very comfortable with who they are, someone who's very strong, someone who is just a real go-getter, someone who's very active, very entrepreneur-like, okay? This is someone who is a real male figure, strong male figure, someone who is very sure of themselves, just a real, what you would call man's man type of energy. Someone who says, look, so if you are in a relationship with this type of person, this is someone who's going to be a protector, a provider, someone who's going to take care of you. May not necessarily be very emotional, may not be very affectionate, but they're definitely reliable and protecting. Up next in the middle, we have the Six of Wands reversed. And so this is a card where lacking recognition. So in the love life, there's not enough conversation. There's not enough, people aren't getting the credit for the things they do right. So this is something where, you know, there may be some complaining. There may be some things that people are worried about. And there's just a lot of like conversations that need to be had. And so I just feel like, just get a sense that there's not enough conversation. There's not enough sense of just like reassuring words of praise or just a sense of, hey, you're doing a great job. I appreciate you. Thank you. You know, things like that. So if you are in a relationship or you're seeking a relationship, one of the biggest things is praise or words of praise. And no matter how long you've been together, you're always going to need a sense of, hey, you're doing a great job. Hey, I appreciate you. Like those things are always valuable. You don't lose the value of saying, thank you. I love you. You matter. You know, I appreciate having you in my life. And so make sure that you're using words and you're showing your affection and showing that you care through acts and words. Okay. Up next, we have the Ace of Wands reversed. So it seems like there's some sort of block in the relationship, a sense of things just can't get started for some reason. There's not enough movement in the relationship. And so what I would say here is just sort of like, if you're able to take some kind of way to maybe hit a reset button. So sometimes it's a matter of maybe having a weekend getaway or reading a book together or reading a blog together, or trying some things differently, or just sort of, you know, mixing things up or shuffling things a little bit. So it's okay. There's a little bit of room to, what you would say, shake the energy up or shuffle the deck a little bit in your relationship in terms of maybe change the schedule or maybe plan a date night. But don't just don't do business as usual. Don't just say, well, this is what we do. This is what we've always done. Just think of like, well, you know, what are some other ways that we can express our love to each other? What are some different ways that we can spend time together, or some different activities? How do we break the mold or break the standard of the norm? Okay. Our challenge here, we have the Six of Pentacles, and this card has a lot to do with being in a giving state. Okay. So this may be a challenge in the relationship right now, maybe like everyone has sort of retreated a little bit to the corner and they're not really giving or they're not even in a state of, how you would say this, going above and beyond. It's like someone who's doing the minimum, someone who's doing just enough, someone who's they're not giving like they should. And so how can you find ways to go above and beyond in your love life, in your relationship? And last, here we have the Nine of Wands. And what it's saying is that if you're not willing to go above and beyond, if you're not willing to go sort of out of your way and shake things up and do things differently, this is going to put you in a state of defense, a state of protection. And so to break out of that, to break out of the isolation that may happen or loneliness in the relationship, you really got to go out your way and be willing to try things differently, to be vulnerable, to be in a state where you are humble and being able to ask like, hey, I'm not completely happy here. Can we do things differently? Can we try some different stuff? Can we go to lunch together? Can we take a day off some days? Can we, go to the park and go for a walk? Like whatever the case may be, where you can spend different ways or find different ways to spend time with your love interest, your person, your partner, so it's not always the same. So I just get a sense like this relationship would improve if you guys broke the norms as far as routine, going to different restaurants, going to different places, trying something different, whatever the case may be. There's just a need for things to just sort of get shaken up a little bit and try things new, try some new stuff so that you're not in this big rut. So a new book, a new podcast, a new TV show, something where you guys just get new ideas on how you can maintain and pour into your relationship. All right, thank you for watching this for me. Many blessings to you. Love and light. Okay, up next we have the pink tourmaline. And I'm gonna pluck one more card. Okay, so here we have the Justice card reversed. In the center, we have the Ten of Wands reversed. On the right-hand side, we have the Nine of Cups reversed. We have Judgment reversed, Nine of Swords, Ace of Cups. Okay, so I just get the sense that from here, there's a lacking of fairness. There's a lacking of the two of you being on the same page. And so with the Justice card reversed, it sense like two people that are at odds with each other, two people that are fighting, two people that just can't get on the same page for whatever reason. With the Ten of Wands reversed is a lot of selfish energy. Someone who's not willing to go out their way for somebody else. Someone who's not willing to, be vulnerable enough to say, hey, I want to help you. Is more like, what can I take from you? What can I get from you? And so I get a sense that this is a relationship or a love, a battle of pulling away from each other. What can I take from this person? And so I just get a lot of sense of taking energy. Justice card reversed, Ten of Wands reversed. This is, what can I get from you? What services can you provide for me? What affection or love can I steal from you? Instead of, what can I give you? What can I build with you? How can I grow with you? It's more like, how can I pimp you? How can I take from you? You got the Nine of Cups reversed. It's like, it's just get a lot of selfish energy here. Judgment card reversed. It's like your heart's not really into this relationship, and it becomes more of a function of utility versus love. And so I just get a sense that this is more about convenience. It's more about a sense of what can I get from that person? What can I take from them? How can I use them to better my life? But not necessarily how can I build a better life with them. It's more like, how can I take from them so that I can be better? And so this is saying, and this Nine of Swords here on the top and this Ace of Cups is saying that this is going to lead to a lot of anxiety. It's going to lead to a lot of just a sense of stress and pressure. And so, and eventually there will be a breakthrough. We'll get to that. I just get a sense that either this relationship needs to end or it needs to be completely restructured. It needs to be torn down and rebuilt. Because right now I feel like there's two people who are literally just looking for ways to exploit each other, to use each other for whatever interest, for whatever gain. Like one person is just using the other person because, for sex or for affection or for a place to live or money. I just get a sense that this is not a relationship built on love and mutual respect and a relationship where the two of you are trying to build something together is more like, how can I use the other person to better my personal interests or better my personal life? Okay, so this Nine of Swords says that this thing has to end somehow. Now, the relationship doesn't have to end, but this cycle has to end. And so how do we break the cycle of I use you, use me, I use you, use me, and turn it into how can we build and grow and become a unit, become one, become a relationship, become solid. And so I just get a sense that it's more like I get this from you, you get this from me. Give and take, give and take, give and take, give and take. And there's not a lot of compromise, not a lot of communication. It's just a matter of pulling at each other. And eventually the strings will snap and the strings will break. And so two choices here. You can either redefine and rebuild this relationship, or you can end the relationship. But it's not going to be able to go on the way it is for too much longer, because the tension is going to snap this thing apart. And you can only fake it for so long before your soul just feels like, oh my God, like I'm just drained. It's so draining to be fake. It's so draining to try to use somebody and be used by somebody over a long period of time. So you gotta, like, at some point you're gonna be like, I gotta stop this. And it leads us to the Ace of Cups. And this gives us an opportunity for a new relationship, a new start, a new beginning. And it could be this same relationship rebuilt, or it can literally be a new relationship. But I just get a feeling that whatever is going on in this relationship, if it were to continue, it will break under its own pressure. So I would say be willing to either do a major overhaul in the relationship, do the deep digging, the deep work, find out how you two can come together, build, compromise, and grow, communicate with each other so you can have a cohesive relationship where you're building together, you're on the same page, you have the same 1, 5, and 10-year goals and the same outlooks. You guys want the same things from each other. Or be willing to seek a new relationship where you're going to build with somebody instead of trying to figure out what you can take from somebody. Okay, up next, we have the Prenite pile. All right, here we go. Okay, so the question is here, obviously, what advice do I have for your love life? Okay, so the first card we have here is the Queen of Cups reversed. This is someone who is emotionally vulnerable, someone who may feel stuck or feel like they're in a situation where they don't have a lot of say and they don't have a lot of like command over the relationship. There's someone who's being told what to do, someone who sort of feels like they don't have any, like, they're not an equal partner in the relationship. And so with the Two of Cups reversed, I feel like one person is dominating the relationship and controlling it over somebody else. And so, you know, how are they in a sense, how can there be equal partnerships here where instead of one person is just pulling at the other person? And so the Queen, I get a sense this Queen feels like she's not heard, and she doesn't have a true opinion in a relationship. She's more so just being told what to do. So it's more of almost like an employment versus a relationship. Like the choices are just not there like they should be. It's more like, this is your role, this is what you do, you take it or leave it, my way or the highway. And so the Fool card reversed here is saying that there's no sense of adventure, there's no sense of just sort of, you know, there's no control here. There's no, the person just doesn't have any leeway. Like if this Queen were to make any suggestions, like she'll just get shot down quickly. And so it leads us to this King of Pentacles reversed. It's a stubborn energy. This is the way to do it. There's only one way to do this thing. There's one way to live life. There's one way to handle this. And there's no other way. That's it. It's just one way. And so the King is very rigid, very structured. He doesn't see other ways. He doesn't see there's more than one direction. There's more than one, you know, you can backtrack and go a different direction. You can try things differently. You can shake things up. You can be flexible. The King just has no room for flexibility in his life. Very rigid, very routine-like, and just likes to live like one kind of way. And he's not real big on trying things differently. He's like, he's one of those type of people who just always has the right answer and is completely off to other people's input and just like, no, I already know how to do it. Why would I listen to anybody else? And ultimately, the Five of Cups is a sense of loss, a sense of things just not going the right way. And so in this relationship, if this queen continues to not have input, and if this king continues to be rigid and not be willing to change things and do things differently, then I would say that this relationship is destined to fail, and or at least lead to hurt, and before it has a stage of recovery. And so, can you prevent the pain? Can you prevent the anguish or loss? It's about rigidity. Is this queen willing to stick up for herself? Really stand up and say, listen, you're going to listen to me. You're going to listen to what I got to say. And if you're not going to listen to me, then I'm going to leave. I need to be in a different relationship. And the king needs to sit down and say, okay, maybe there is more than one way to live life. Maybe there's more than one way to be in a relationship, and I can treat you differently, and we can do things differently. We can eat different foods. We can go to different places. We can share our finances. We can, move our house around, do things differently. And I could be more helpful and be more attentive, whatever the case may be. But this king, I just get rigid energy. Like, this is it. This is the only way. I don't like doing things differently. My dad was that way. This is how I am. And I'm not changing. I'm too old. I'm, whatever. I'm at a certain age where this is just too late. I'm not changing. This is who I am. And so the Five of Cups is ultimately a card of loss. It's a card of being able to let go and move on. And so there is a sense of sadness here, a sense of, wow, it would be nice if the relationship would have worked out. But in actuality, you are left now with a chance for a new relationship. And what this will do is it will take you to a place where you have a better idea of what you don't want. And so sometimes it's hard to define what you do want, but at least set the boundary of what you don't want. And so you know what you don't want, and whatever you do want will be in the remaining area, whatever's left over after what you don't want, okay? And that's not maybe a perfect way to define a relationship, but it's a foundation of some sort versus having no foundation at all, okay? So if this queen does not have an opportunity to speak her mind, to be heard, and if this king is not willing to budge and change and be flexible and be vulnerable and be caring and show some compassion, show some affection and do things differently, if they're not willing to budge in their two idealistic ways of living, then I feel like this relationship is headed for loss and headed for a sense of sorrow until this thing can be fixed. All right, thank you for letting me read for you, and thank you for choosing this pile. Okay, here we go. We have the Spirit Quartz pile. Okay, first thing is the Five of Wands reverse. This is a lot of petty squabbling. That's usually how this card is defined, is two people that fight over the littlest things. It's like, goodness gracious, like, certain things are worth fighting over and certain things are not. So, like who sits where or who drives or whatever. Like, there's like 1,000 tiny little fights that you can get into that are not necessarily helpful. They're not necessarily beneficial. So it's like, sometimes it's okay not to have the little fights. It's okay to not make the little comments that are like annoying. It's like, oh my God, like, why is it this person always has to make a comment, or they have to always like sort of be in a state of just trying to tear me down or take little jabs at me all day long, because the little jabs add up. So it's like, hey, if you can avoid any like tiny bickering or tiny fighting of any sort, if you can avoid that and not give that any energy, it definitely be beneficial for you. And so, and then let the other person know, like, hey, next time they make a comment that's like, kind of like a little jab or a little slick comment, you're like, hey, I just, please stop doing that. Let's move beyond the cynicism and moving beyond the sarcasm, okay? Up next, we have the Ace of Swords. And so now this Ace of Swords to me is about somebody standing up for themselves. This is about creating new boundaries. This is about drawing new lines in the sand and say, listen, we need to redefine what's acceptable in our relationship and what's not acceptable in our relationship. And so what this Ace of Swords does, it says, look, we get a chance to remark and reestablish boundaries. And so this Five of Wands, the little bickering and fighting, is because there may be some lines that are being crossed. And they may be small lines, but you cross them enough times and they add up. So what I would say with the Five of Wands reversed and the Ace of Swords here is, this is a sense of, can you reestablish your boundaries so that everyone knows the rules, everyone knows what's acceptable, and it's very clear what will be tolerated and what will be not. And what the consequences are. What happens if you do X, Y, Z, and for whatever reason. But it's a lot of communication. Talk about everything, every little thing. Talk about it, and the more you talk about stuff, and the more you get things out, you just get a better sense of how each other feel, how each other operates. And one of the biggest things you can do in a relationship is talk. Talk about everything. Talk, so that you'll know, what is your partner thinking? What do they think is acceptable? What do they think is not acceptable? What are the different ways that they can operate so that this thing works and this thing may not work, okay? Up next, we have the Three of Pentacles, and this is about building something. It's about coming together as a team. How do you come together and become a unit so that you can build a relationship that will last, that will be strong during the tough times? And so this is about building a strong foundation, building a structure so that when things get tough, and they always will, when things, when life comes at you, because it always is, you guys can actually stand the tough part, and your relationship has been stress tested enough so that when the tough times come, you aren't ripped apart at the seams, and that you actually are strong enough, and you've built something strong enough to where you don't have to worry about being torn down every time there's just a little bit of stress or life coming at you. Challenge card is the Hangman. And so what I feel like with this card is it's a card of waiting for the other person to make a move, waiting for the other person to solve the relationship or fix the relationship. And so what happens here is, don't wait for the other person. Don't wait for your partner to be like, hey, let's read a book. Hey, let's watch some documentaries. Let's do some things together. Let's find a way to improve our relationship. Like, you can't wait for the other person to suggest ways for the relationship to get better, okay? What I would suggest for you to do is you be the one to initiate change in your relationship. You be the one to initiate different ways of doing things so that things get moving. So you're not waiting for the other person. Like, don't wait for it to happen. You got to make it happen. And last here we have the Ace of Pentacles reversed. And so this is usually a financial card, but it's more about being practical. If you're really going to build this relationship and build something solid, you have to initiate change. And so you can't be the one that says, I'll wait for the other person. I'll wait for my partner to be willing to make changes. Or I'll wait for my partner to, be the one to suggest going to a retreat or read a book or, whatever way, a new podcast or watch a movie or a date or, whatever the case may be. So this says that if you want to build a solid relationship, if you want to build this foundation, if you want to come together as a couple, you're going to be the person who's reading or listening to this reading. You're the one that has to initiate the change. You're the one who has to initiate this new way of being, or this new level of, or the new chapter of this relationship. So be in a state of initiation. Be in a state of creating and doing and building and starting on your own. Don't wait for your partner to initiate change. You're the one who's going to have to make this new change happen. Okay, so I'm counting on you, and this relationship is counting on you to be the one to spark this next level, to spark this next change, to spark this next chapter in your relationship. I'm Elijah Sun Card 19. Thank you all for watching, for listening. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Be sure to comment, subscribe. Be sure to tell your friends, and be on the lookout for more videos. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Have a great one. Love and light. Peace.